Hi, I'm Ken Shorley. I'm a percussionist from Canada, and I have a video today that combines two of my favorite instruments, the North Indian Tabla and the Novation Launchpad. When I was setting up for this video today, I realized that I've created a sort of percussion experiment that may in fact make no one happy except for me. What I've done is designed a custom mode for the Launchpad. This is a Tabla mode, and this is inspired by the recent bongo mode that I saw Novation come out with, and so I thought, well, maybe I can come up with a tabla mode. Now, I've designed it, of course, because I play the tabla, I've designed it ergonomically so that it makes sense to me as a tabla player. So if you are not a tabla player, this may not make any sense to you. And if you are a tabla player, you may be frustrated with the whole thing anyways, because it's not quite as dexterous as playing the tabla itself. But let me break it down and I'll show you what I'm up to. This was set up using Novation's Components app, which is really great, very easy to use. One of the frustrating things for me as a percussionist when I go to do any sort of hand percussion on an electronic instrument is that these things are all designed square, and every drum, pretty well every drum that I play is round. So what I'm trying to do is to simulate the hand position that you get on the tabla. Now, this is the first thing. There's a na and a din. These are two strokes with the index finger. And what I've done is I've brought these two purple ones here in that position, and I've left this blank one here so that I could actually plant my ring finger there, just so it feels right to me as a tabla player. When you play these strokes on the tabla itself, you're actually dampening the center ring with the ring finger. So I've attempted to emulate that here by having the na and the din next to each other. The na is further away, as it is on the tabla. Those are the main sort of open sounds. Oh, there's this tun, which is open, and I put that up here to simulate that. So you have tun, na. The main sort of open tone for the bayan, the bass drum of the tabla, is this ge. And one of the big features of playing the bayan is that you can modulate the pitch with your wrist. Now, I struggled with this, and I tried to figure out how I could have this open tone and I could use the pressure of my wrist to raise the pitch in the same way that you do on the tabla. Now, the only thing, this little pad in the corner doesn't generate its own note, but it is MIDI mapped to a change in pitch. Now, I have yet, because I'm not really a programmer, I have not really found a way that I can use the pressure on this to modulate this in micro increments, as you can do on the real thing, but I have simulated that to some extent, so I can actually raise the pitch. But what I decided was that I would just use a separate sample here, rather than trying to literally do all the pitch bending with the wrist. These dampened strokes, both for me, the right hand and the left hand, I've mapped those to these positions, and you can see I have it on a diagonal here and on a diagonal here as a way of simulating, to some extent, simulating the hand position on the tabla. Now, this is not an exact one-to-one translation, and I recognize that when you're trying to play tabla sounds on a Launchpad, it's not going to feel the same. There's a lot of like very dexterous, these types of fast patterns. The Launchpad itself, even when I have the latency quite low, it's not bad. When you play on the pads of your fingers here, the Launchpad itself doesn't respond quite as well to that as to a direct sort of pressured straight down. So I'm learning to modify my Launchpad tabla technique so that it's a little more on the ends of the fingers, because the pads respond better. This one over in the corner, I'm not even sure whether I use it that much. These two notes, na and din, this is an alternate, what I consider an alternate din. That if you were playing really fast patterns, I was trying to simulate that by putting one of these pads over in the corner. The one thing which I found really challenging with this, because this is on custom, this is a custom mode on Launchpad, and I put it on custom 4. There's other ones that are set up. I sort of mapped this in components to custom 4. The challenge is there are 8 custom modes, and if your pad is way over here, you can accidentally do that, and which I've done a few times when I've been trying to learn this thing, and it triggers it into custom mode 8, and the whole thing disappears, which is a bit of an oops. One of the things I've noticed is that I really do have to be very specific with my hand placement and the finger placement on this, or else I can have unexpected things happen. All right, now these 2 lines up here, these are optional. They have nothing to do with the tabla per se, but what I've done, let's see, do I have that? Yeah. I've altered a pad that's in Ableton, and I'm running all of this stuff through Ableton, a pad which is called a Freudian pad, and I did some modifications on it so that it is simulating the Indian drone instrument, the tambura. So I've just mapped that to the top. And this is just a vibraphone sound, and there's a practice in North Indian tabla where you would have a melodic phrase which is repeated over and over, which is called lera or lahara. And on recording, sometimes you will hear this played on a vibraphone or an instrument that sounds like a vibraphone. So I added these 2 instruments to my tabla custom mode. That's basically how it all works. So I've got the ge and the git, and the kat, which is the flat. So these ones here, all in a diagonal, are for the bayan. I believe I was working on a left, yeah, so I also have a left-handed version of this for tabla players who are left-handed, but I'm right-handed, which means that the tonal sounds on the smaller drum are played with the right hand, and all of the bass on the bayan is played with the left hand. I'm going to jam a little bit and go back and forth and see how this sounds. And I can still tell when I'm playing back and forth that the Launchpad doesn't respond quite as fast, but you know. Like that. I'm not sure. I can't quite make it speak quite as easily as on the actual drums. Anyways, but it's kind of fun, and I have enjoyed this custom mode. The other thing that I did for those who care, because when you're playing tabla here, one stroke does cancel out the next stroke. So I've set up in this drum rack that I've made, I've set up a choke. So there's a choke for all of the right hand strokes, and then there's a choke for the left hand strokes too. I think designing any sort of electronic imitation of acoustic instrument, the main thing that you need are really good samples. And I realized that I didn't have any good samples, so I made my own custom samples and chopped them up and put them into all of these particular regions. And I used this same microphone. This microphone that I'm using now is the Neumann TLM 102, and I use that same microphone to sample all these things. If you have questions about this, or if you want to debate whether I should have done this at all, if you're a tabla player or an electronic drummer, this may make absolutely no sense to any of you. But I enjoyed putting this together on the Novation Launchpad, and I hope you'll come back again for other videos about rhythm, drumming, and percussion.